What you're about to listen to is part of the Podgods Network. If you go to podgodsnetwork.com, you'll find other great shows there too. Have a nice day! What you're about to hear is part of the Podgods Network. If you have a problem with anything you hear, please write it in an email and go fuck yourself. Enjoy the show!
All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up.
Salty Language presents The Enthusiast.
Hey everybody, this is Salty Language. We're here for another episode of The Enthusiast, and we are joined. I'm Bryan. I'm joined by Tony.
Hello there.
And our pal Oz is come back for another visit.
G'day, g'day.
And then also today we're joined by Professor Elemental.
Hello everybody, nice to be here.
Now, as they said on the show, we have a man, a rapper both dapper and exciting, whose syntax is Tintax and powered by lightning, full of pith and vernacular, both odd and spectacular, blunderbuss underarm, squid tank, opium and quaint English charm. So if tea is your thing and you realise the importance of being earnest, jump in the Zeppelin with the rapper who is the Jules Vernest. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up. From the stage to Steampunk's history page, Professor Elemental. See, that's the way we were supposed to lead in.
Sorry, I can edit
that
this.
was beautiful. Would you mind? I'm getting a bit bored of writing songs. Could you do them from now on and just give me the words? We'll do a whole ghostwriter thing. That's what that's what P. Diddy and people do. They have ghostwriters.
Yeah.
Can you just email me all this kind of shit and then I'll knock it out and the Steampunks will love it.
I can actually be sort of the dark Professor Elemental, like, I don't know, the Professor Fundamentally Wrong or something. So
yeah, just keep you locked in the attic and some hard things for me.
Big brass manacles.
Yeah.
Occasionally feed you a can of Fosters to keep you going. It'll be fine.
I was actually once a twin that he used to have inside him that was surgically removed.
You are my dark half. That's lovely.
I think we just wrap it up. That was gorgeous.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay,
yeah.
Thanks very much for having me, guys.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the most complicated thing I'm going to say, because I'm actually going to make it real lowbrow now. Now, for those that haven't heard of you, well, they actually should have, because essentially you're one of the doyens, in fact, the thinking woman's sex symbol, and dare I undersell it by referring to you as the Dalai Lama of Chap Hop. But more than that, you are essentially the figurehead for the steampunk movement. In fact, it would be fair to say that you invented steampunk. So my opening question, you're going to get a lot of shit after this. The opening question,
No, keep going.
which is pretty standard. What is steampunk?
Oh, it's good. It's good. I like all of those quotes that you've just given me are going to appear on my next poster. In fact,
Well,
on everything from now on, I'm going to just use a selection of your quotes.
Well, I am your ghostwriter now, so...
Well, yeah, exactly.
Right.
Don't worry, you'll get your credit. So steampunk is my favourite description of it. The one that I've used that kind of gets it in people's heads the best is that it's like a comic convention and a fetish night got together and had a baby in Victorian times.
I like where
in
this
the
is going.
future.
Wow,
That's
Victorian
fun.
future. I love it.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. That's
a good answer.
everything combined as far as I can see it.
I think that's pretty
Okay.
accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Basically, it's nerdy Victorian science fiction with a slightly fruity edge, isn't it? It's got a slightly naughty edge to it, steampunk, I think. I've noticed a lot of the same people at the steampunk gigs. I'll often see them at the fetish nights as well. I'm like, yes, I thought there was something going on here. Lovely.
Well, it's understandable. Who doesn't like naughty fruit? So the question, the professor, now where did he find his genesis?
Well, truth be told, mushrooms is the short answer. It was a night me and my producer friend Tom Caruana, we spent in a tree eating loads of mushrooms on toast. and talking in a stupid voice. And he was going to be he was going to do a whole album of different rappers representing different periods throughout time. And I was the only one there, so I did my little one, which was a Victorian one, just as a one-off song called Penny Dreadful, and then we left it at that. And then I did it on stage as a one-off, and I was like, oh my god, I found my voice finally, because I was a bit of a shit rapper. I never really settled into having the right kind of persona for rap. And it was only when I started using my least appealing characteristics and pushing them to the forefront that I realised I'd found my voice on stage. So that was it, basically. Yeah, a combination of mushrooms and fortuitous timing.
So the sky was the limit, but fortunately you never decided to have to sort of take that, massive leap and sort of plummet, which is good because that's how we got into podcasting. So outside of absinthe, Earl Grey and opium, where do the professor's influences lie outside the genre?
No, you pretty much nailed it there. It's those three things. I mean, other ideas come, but they're never as good.
Yeah.
Absinthe, opium, and caffeine. It's often it comes from Tom, to be honest, because he provides all of the beats for me. And if you hear a song of mine like the horse tune that I did, This Is My Horse. When you get a beat like that, it could only be about you having a horse, and it could only really have you shouting, I've got a horse, over and over again. Like it's not like I could write another kind of song to that. So a lot of the inspiration comes from him, and increasingly we've decided, because I'm also aware that as a bit of an unusual act, and you it's terrifying, the idea of being some kind of awful one-hit novelty, because it might mean I have to go and get a proper job. So we're starting now to try and do whole concept albums, so tell more stories in albums and take it into some new and different places, just so you don't have like loads more versions of, oh, here's another song about tea, and have you seen my newer trousers? Like, I'm, but I kind of keep pushing it to new places all the time.
They're like, you're on album like 25, and they're like, okay, we get it. How many pairs of pants does this guy have? Yeah,
exactly. Honestly, my close friends are like, we don't need to see that fucking tea song again. We get it. You like tea. That's all right. So yeah, it's my duty now is to kind of keep it fresh and to find new and interesting little angles. So I'm all about stories and concepts for the next couple of years.
I've got to admit, sort of your song about tea is actually one of my favourites, and when you sort of make the reference that you're not into herbal tea, it actually sort of triggered off a post-traumatic stress disorder moment with me, because I remember being a child when they were talking about the introduction of herbal teas, and everything tasted like microwaved cordial, and so I decided to make my younger brother a herbal tea, which is basically just, Ribena that I put in a microwave, and I actually found it enormously clever until I actually burnt my brother. So, it's one of those things. I don't want to say that you sort of encourage that sort of rebellious experimental spirit in, people with your music, but that song did. So
yeah, good. I'm glad to hear it. That's nice. I'm glad if I can scold anybody's siblings inadvertently, then I feel like my job is done.
That needs to be on a poster.
Come with the warning label on it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it should to all of my friends and family, really.
Please don't.
Just because he's a professor doesn't necessarily mean his doctorate's a real one.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't trust a thing this man says.
Right, he's a professor like Dre's a doctor, right?
It's true.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all know he's a surgeon.
Thank you. I'm going to totally steal that. I'm getting so much out of this podcast, honestly.
That's going to be in sort of from now on, every time that we talk about promotion of the podcast, we've said, well, one guy enjoyed being on it. So
yeah,
we have one.
He stole all of the things we said and made it into his next album.
Right.
Now you've just come back from Sweden.
Yeah, Sweden. They're nice in Sweden. I like the Swedes. European steampunks are they're super cool. They're much
like
cooler
Viking
than
steampunks.
Yeah, they exactly were like Viking steampunks. They all like to dress up as Vikings in their spare time. And they're quite reserved, the Swedes. So when I was on stage and I was like, I was talking about being British, I said, who's proud to be Swedish? They gave a reaction like British people do. They were like, well, I'm not going to shout that out loud. And then I said, who here is, who's a proud Viking? They went fucking mental. They were nuts. They're kind of they've got that bubbling under the surface.
So the difference is that when you said who's proud to be a Viking, that's like saying who's proud to be an American. Because exactly.
But there is really like interesting cultural differences that you see. Obviously, you see them within different subcultures, but steampunks are different in different countries. Are sort of the same but different. We're all nerds, but we're kind of different flavors of nerds. In England, they seem to be much harder drink. They're just basically just alcoholics and hats.
That's fair.
In Europe, they seem super cool. In America, everybody is like massively enthusiastic. They've all built their own like cybernetic arms and huge kinetic hats that fly off into space and stuff.
I'm actually all steampunk. I'm just a robot kind of thing.
Steampunk, yeah. So it is different, and in Canada there's a sort of weird mix somewhere in between. Canada, they're just polite, aren't they? They're just the nicest people.
Yeah.
I was just trying to wrap my head around the fact that there is actually Scandinavian steampunk. I was just imagining it's like the old thing, sort of sticks and cogs and springs on it. But if those cogs and springs come from IKEA, I mean, how good is that for steampunk?
Geez. Honestly, they were all like master craftsmen. Every costume was like beautifully put together. Whereas, particularly with my sort of stuff, it's like my shoes have come from the cheapest shoe shop, my trousers are from a charity shop, the jacket's stolen from somebody at a party once. Like, I felt very underdressed, very, very underdressed. What are they like? Have you come across steampunk in Australia? What's it like? I'm curious. I want to go.
It's very much like 1978. No, it's actually very much like it is in the United Kingdom and also sort of US. It's that sort of weird hybrid that we have. It's not as big, I think, and it's certainly not as sophisticated as Scandinavian steampunk, whereas everything's assembled with Allen keys. In Australia, just basically steampunk is just, empty beer cans and sort of sticking clock parts on stuff.
I like that though. I think that's the side of it that I often enjoy the most when I see it, handcrafted and done with a sort of homemade passion. That's the same with like cosplay at conventions, isn't it?
It is.
The perfect costumes aren't nearly as interesting as the imperfect ones at home.
Yeah, that's certainly true. Yeah,
cardboard Iron Man.
Yeah,
it's pretty great.
Exactly. Yeah. I rest my case. Yeah. I didn't want to pitch with normal Iron Man. I wanted to pitch with cardboard Iron Man.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I think we've established well, actually, no, we haven't. Where would you say the majority of your audience lays? I mean, you are 100% British. There's no sort of getting over that. We have to acknowledge it here. But where would you say the majority of your audience lays? Is it in the UK, or is it sort of fairly scattershot throughout the globe?
I think it's fairly scattershot. Like, America and Canada have got a lovely, some really nice friends over there. But England is still where I get the kind of regular shows. It's just basically nerds, and that was the best thing that ever happened to me. Realizing that I could rap about things I actually cared about and show that I was a nerd and that other people would be on board with that. So that means that you can cross over. I think the reason that I get by okay with it is because I get to cross over from conventions to steampunky things to sort of comedy nights and burlesque things to fetish nights, and they've all got a large proportion of nerds in, so there's a lot of shared interest, and it means you can get away with those weird little in-jokes about Galactus or whatever, and people will get them, which is really satisfying. You know what it's like. You go through,
right.
You're over the moon when you find some other nerds that you can chat to for the first time.
It's
lovely.
Yeah. It's all part of the same tribe.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody, there is very little difference really, because whether you're comics or steampunk or whatever else, we are basically all the same tribe, aren't we? We don't get a lot of exercise and we like staying in.
well, that's actually a really good segue. Like Tony and Bryan actually used to own a comic book shop, and Tony, not Tony, Bryan, you were actually going to ask the prof about his foray into comics, weren't you?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, what books do you read, or what has tickled your fancy in the comics world?
I'm really into Image comics. Are just blowing me away at the moment. I don't know if it's my age and how just sort of dissatisfied I've got with DC and having to give up on all of the DC titles from Multiversity, which is great.
True.
But yeah, Image is just brilliant. Like, what is it? Velvet's really good, and that new Jason Aaron one that's brilliant as well. There's a new Grant Morrison one with, I think, Fraser Irving has done the artwork, which I haven't read yet, but that looks beautiful.
Annihilator, is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, I haven't read it yet. Just sitting waiting.
Tony actually turned me on to that one. Yeah,
it's very good.
Art is beautiful.
Grant Morrison might be mad and he might be quite flawed in some of his writing, but he's easily the person I get sort of most excited about reading a comic from, because you know that you're going to have to read it 7 or 8 more times before it starts making sense as well. You get some value out of it, doesn't it?
You know, in that book, I don't mind it because Irving's art is so beautiful in that book. That I don't mind looking at it.
He's unique as well, isn't he? There's no one doing anything quite like him. You get a lot of good artists and that are a bit like other artists, but he's completely unique, which is a rare and beautiful thing. Yep. I've had a really weird few weeks of getting all the New 52 books out of the library, and then I sit like a parent with a bad report card from a once promising child. I spend my time going, oh God, no. My girlfriend's going, why are you reading it? You hate all of these. Well, I have to read them. I have to read them to see how shit they are.
Right?
Yeah.
And they are.
The other show that I'm involved with, 7 Days a Geek, I'd actually made a criticism on air about Scott Snyder's work, not his work on Batman, but his foray in the sort of the Superman book. I can't remember the one because I'm pretty much over DC's New 52.
Superman Unchained.
Yeah, it's a cancer on my soul. But I just went off my tits on air about this comic, and without a word of a lie, as soon as it actually went up on air, Scott Snyder actually contacted the podcast and said, look, I'm sorry that Oz is actually really not enjoying the comic, but could you tell me, did he actually like Batman? And he started following me, and he's a really nice guy, and I felt really terrible. But
I bet that's exactly what happened with me and bloody Mr. B. I mean, I laid into him, met up with him for a drink, and he was the nicest man in the world. You feel like such a shit, don't you?
I mean, where do you go from there? And look, I'm exactly the same as you. Like, I started off really heavy into Marvel. Just saw, the fact that, all the X books, everyone was changing a fucking costume every 6 seconds. And there were that many crossover crises, and then the New 52, and it started out really good because Swamp Thing was like a really good book again, and the stories seemed to have substance. And then all of a sudden everything just basically started to rot and decay. Marvel changed, and they're rebooting again.
And about to reboot again.
I think Marvel are in a great place at the moment. Like, not everything, but all the stuff that I tend to buy, your Hawkeyes and Daredevils and stuff.
Yes.
Some great books out there. You can kind of choose how you approach Marvel as well. You can come at it from a lot of different angles, and if you don't want to buy into everything, you can still have a good time with Marvel without buying every single X title and all the rest of it. So I'm a bit sad that they're rebooting. It feels really unnecessary. They were doing a good job.
I think that, they're actually starting to learn their lessons from, Hawkeye's like a great read, and the Superior Foes of Spider-Man as well.
I love that book.
We all loved it. Why did it have to go?
It's just absolutely hard. But that sort of, kitschy sort of 1 foot in the real world and 1 foot in, still honouring the history of what they actually established for the characters. But, as sort of geeks growing up, and like I hit 43 this year and I'm still reading comic books. So I still believe in the characters, and it's really nice to actually see that there is that narrative that's going on. But when they're sort of having crossover crises, look, I steered away from that and went into Avatar and Image as well, and certainly Vertigo. Like, Vertigo has some hit-miss titles, but... Yeah.
There's still the thing is there's always good books to find. You just you have to sort of if you look back to any period when you're reading comics, it was never a golden age. It was always a load of shit, wasn't there? There's always loads of even at like the 80s. Let's take the 80s and Watchmen and Swamp Thing. That was also just loads and loads of awful comics, some of which are my absolute favourites. So it's a bit. I'm the same with hip hop. People often hark on about the sort of golden age of hip hop in the 90s, but they sort of forget about New Jack Swing and MC Hammer and all the really terrible songs that were out. Right. So I think and as we get older, it's easier to find things to moan about. But there's a lot of joy. I still have a good fat standing order at the comic shop every week, and I still find a lot of good stuff out there. There's a lot more variety, I think, than there used to be.
Yeah.
I think the best advice that I ever sort of received, and certainly done me services, I've grown, is, as much as you like the character, as much as you like the art, as long as you follow a writer that you like, then you'll never be disappointed in terms of sort of the overall sense of what you've just, spent your money on. And that's been the same, like Ed Brubaker and Greg Rucker and those sort of gritty ones is the ones that I sort of really get into as well. So
you're right. The fade out's really good, isn't it? Brubaker's
that's really good.
I don't think Brubaker's had his name on anything in a long time that's not been really good.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, he's really, and considering the sort of level of work that he has to put out to make the kind of books that he makes, it's not like he can just kind of knock them out. A lot more careful planning has to go into those.
Oh yeah,
but I think you're right. I think following a good writer is a good start. Good artists can work like that as well. But a good writer, you sort of always know where you are with a decent writer.
Yeah,
right.
Oh, and particularly anyone that can actually write at the same intensity as to whether he's writing Catwoman or Captain America or some sort of crime tale. All completely different, but that same intensity. So, Anyway, that's me nerding out. So now, I was telling Tony and Brian this before. I was trying to explain it to them. The British Eccentric Society. Now, you're an official member. How did that come about?
They're lovely. I got nominated on their website, and then I sort of just got all of anybody I could to vote for me, and tried to rig it as much as possible. And then they voted.
That's the way voting works.
Sorry?
I said that's the way voting works. Yeah,
that's the way it works. So they voted me in, and it's delightful for me because the character of the professor would go to a weird gentleman's club on a sort of semi-regular basis and sort of sit by the fire with a sherry. But in real life, I would never end up doing that. And thanks to the professor, like these bizarre sort of fantasies start coming true. Now I do get to be member of the gentleman's club that meet in London, and it is full of exactly who you would hope it to be full of. Strange inventors and unusual sort of entrepreneurs and so on. And it's overall it's a wonderful thing. And of course the patron is the Duke of Edinburgh, which couldn't be more appropriate.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah, I was about to say, because I mean, sort of when you're not sort of sitting under the pith helmet and being served by like a monkey butler. I mean, going to that sort of environment whereby you just walk in through the door and go, well, I'm Professor Elemental, and you go, okay, this is the character, this is the character, and everyone around you has that. I don't want to say they're nuts, but they have that level of eccentricity that makes you think, oh, well, I hope there's no like knives or really sharp spoons laying around. Do you know what I mean? Because I imagine sort of going into that, there would be a slight, moo of intrepidation or trepidation sort of going into that, knowing that, these are essentially the alpha predators of like the exotic and the eccentric.
No, it's because they're posh. The posh people are eccentric, aren't they? Posh people with money are eccentric, and poor people without money are just mental. They're just seen as mad. They don't get the luxury of being eccentric.
That's interesting. So money buys the difference there, right?
Yeah,
money buys
that is exactly what it is. Right. Money buys the difference. I struggle sometimes with being like when I'm at a show, particularly after a gig, or when I'm in the States as well, trying to like keeping up the professor character. Just sometimes I can't be bothered with it. I can't be bothered with the flowery steampunk language that goes with it. Particularly if you want to have a decent conversation, like if we're all sat down having a drink or like even doing this podcast now, it's a bit tiring having to listen to me going, oh, how splendid, isn't it lovely? Have you seen my monkey butler? Sometimes you just want to be able to say, what comics do you read? Or, oh, that was a bit fun gig or whatever. So there is that balance there. But then having said that, people often look at me with a look of utter disappointment if I start speaking normally for a bit. So I'm trapped.
Yeah, I could see that.
Trapped in the character I made.
That's what I was going to ask you about as well, because when we actually had Mr. B on when Jim came on, and we did actually sort of clear with him, how he's to be sort of addressed on air and that sort of thing. And I remember him from sort of back in like the 90s when he was like the one of the members of Collapse Lung. Yeah, and when I'm talking to him, I just keep on wanting him to actually say "eat my goal" or break out into something else, because it's just like the total polar opposite of what he's sort of doing now. That whole, because it is essentially it's a look and it's a whole theme that he's got going on.
Absolutely, he's very much in. I don't think there's as much disparity between his character and his real self in some ways. Like mine is very much me sort of turned up and exaggerated and all of my worst characteristics brought to the fore. But Mr. B's pretty mellow and cool with stuff, and Jim's pretty mellow and cool with stuff. Jim's very much a sort of raised, he would express surprise with a raised eyebrow and a wry comment rather than kind of like shouting and going nuts. And Mr. B's pretty much like that as well. And also he dresses the same the whole time as well. I'd be arrested sooner or later if I dressed like that all the time, and rightly so. And my children.
Oh no, come on, you're eccentric.
And, right. It wouldn't be right, would it? Yeah, I know, but think of the children. Yeah. It would be fun now that they're like 6 and 3. Imagine them as teenagers with 4 songs.
Well, you do have the monkey butler to take care of all that. So I mean,
well, that's very true. He can take them to school, can't he?
Absolutely. Although I don't know, from the stories you tell in your songs and stuff, it seems like he's pretty bawdy. He tends to get into a lot of trouble. So
yeah, he's sort of, depending on where he appears. Like in the comic, he tends to be my more sensible manservant. The guy who writes the comics tends to put him in a slightly different role. But I always like to think of him as just a genuine ape. Like it would be shit having an ape butler. They would just be throwing the pill everywhere and swinging off the chandeliers and being used things. Right. I like that idea. And for the next project, I'm going to go and I'm going to sort of use that original idea that we had.
I actually think that the concept of a butler wouldn't be too bad. I mean, the idea is sort of having hawkers at the front door or people that you don't actually want to see, sort of having known that monkeys, particularly in sort of Taronga Zoo in Sydney, are very keen on throwing shit at people. So maybe that's sort of like, the monkey butler's like answers the door, makes your tea and acts as a backup sort of shit throwing security system.
It's a good idea right up to the point of him getting the making tea and the throwing shit confused.
Right.
I don't think he'd be able to distinguish well enough that you'd be able to trust a cup of tea from Jeffrey.
Right. Listeners, that's where Lap Sanderson Sean.
And just don't look him in the eyes. Don't show him your teeth.
Yeah. And I don't think you could count on him to sew you up like Alfred does for Batman after a rough night on the town.
Yeah, God, that's awful.
Yeah.
I've seen that to me. I'm going to try and do a little story.
Monkey Alfred, I like this.
A monkey with a needle just seems like a terrifying thing.
I do like that. There's so many things that I want to do with.
Now,
I was going to say so many things I want to do with Jeffrey, but that sounds sinister.
Yeah,
and someone might end up calling the authorities.
Yeah, relax, Professor. I've got this one sorted. I'll send you the script later.
Thanks so much.
Yeah,
I count on you to straighten that one out.
Oz actually has a fanfic site.
We've got a script for the second season of the Chronicles of Professor Elemental. We've just got to get funding.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be the darker version, the Chronicles Night.
Elemental Rises.
Oh, jeez. Bad sequel names. That's fantastic. Now, how did the comic come about?
Someone got a really nice chap called Chris Mole got in touch and said, do you fancy working on a comic together? And he bit his hand off with excitement. And what was really nice about it is I've never been great with knowing what small press comics to go for, but because he was already connected to that world, he started putting the word out and just getting in touch with loads of other writers and artists, and it built and built and built and built. So now I write a few of the stories. He writes nearly all of the stories and edits it, and we get different artists in to help the wonderful world of small press, and I've been introduced to lots of their work as well, which has made it a sort of extra bonus. The nice thing these days is you can get in touch with some of your heroes as well. So I've got Charlie Adler doing the cover for issue 4, and Brian Kessinger, who does Otto and Victoria, a Disney artist, did issue 3.
Oh, nice.
You can kind of start. I did a lovely swap with him because he's a really nice man. He said, "Well, I'll draw your cover if you do me a song about my creations, Otto and Victoria." So we've done a lovely swap, which worked out really nicely.
Oh, that is very cool.
That is cool.
Huh.
Yeah, it's nice. So yeah, comics is a good thing, and it made me realise how much good small press stuff there is outside.
Oh, yeah.
I've been missing out on.
Yeah, and it's a tough world. We actually, Tony and I have a friend of ours that's been toiling away trying to get himself through the footholds of being in the small press or doing his own books and stuff like that. So it's and he's actually told me about stuff I had never heard of, and because when he's at the conventions, he's spending time in the, artist alleys and the...
Yeah, he's right there, isn't he?
Yeah, he's down in the trenches, I guess you could say,
Yeah. Well, that's the nice thing, and I think that's why it's such a great time to be a nerd, because if not for YouTube and the internet, I would still be doing my little weird professor act upstairs in a pub in our local town for 4 people. And likewise, those people with small press comics would be photocopying them and giving them out to a few friends. But now, like, the world is our oyster. We're the 3 of us all talking on different continents,
right.
All got our own projects of interest going on, and we can join those up whenever we like. So I think it's beautiful. It's a fine time to be doing this sort of thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Is that where a lot of grew from, was YouTube? Because your videos are terrific.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a chap called Moog who's done almost all of my videos, and YouTube. It was those first couple of YouTube videos that got me the first couple of American convention gigs and made me think, well, maybe I could give up teaching and working properly and trying to do this for a living, which was a very big bold step for me, because I never dreamed that you might even be able to make a living out of it. But thank God I don't have to go to work. I can't tell you. I don't even, I like doing creative stuff. I like steampunk. I like doing artisty things. All I really care about is not going to work every day. That's my main motivation.
I think that's probably that's how you know you made it. Yeah.
I say you probably just wake up and fist pump real quick and put on the pith helmet and go to work.
But then bizarrely, I've realised that the only way to keep it maintained is by doing lots and lots of administration. So I had to hire myself out an office space, and I go to that office space 9 to 5 every day, exactly like the job that I struggled so hard for. There is no escape. At least I can wear what I like, and I've got a good collection of toys around me, so it's not so.
Right. Oh. And that makes all the difference, yeah.
Hey, just close the office door. I'm working.
Yeah.
You are essentially living the dream, if that's the case. I was about to say, you said you got your office is full of toys now, because this might surprise you, sort of me being into comics, but I am actually also a toy collector. Big surprise, I know. What are we talking? Are you like the action figure side of things? What are we talking? Funko Pops, Hot Toys? What does the professor have in his office?
Well, I'm glad no one's ever asked me that. Oh, it's so good talking with fellow nerds. It's a combination. Like I used to really dig the Superpowers figures, and I'm determined that I will eventually collect them all, just because it's that sort of thing that you kind of go back to. But my big thing is those bloody Muppet figures that they stopped making, the Palisade ones.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
but now, the last few that I can't get hold of are so expensive because they're not going to make any more of them, and they're just being hoarded by other similarly greedy collectors like me. So I've got nearly all of the bastards, but they're now the last few are going to be increasingly hard to find. And do you really want to have to go back home and sort of say, well, we can't go on holiday this year, children, but look, Daddy's got a new variant Swedish chef figure. Can't really do it. So there's going to be a few forever out of my reach, I think.
Well, that's too bad.
What about you guys? What kind of stuff do you collect? What's good toys? What's good toys these days?
My thing now is because I've scaled way back on what I do, but I just buy like the Funko Pops because I just love those things.
Oh yeah, they're funky. They're nice, very nice, and very very nicely collectible as well. Like easy to get more of. Lovely.
Yeah,
I'm more into beer growlers. Which says a lot about my hobbies.
Tony's an alcoholic.
What?
No. They're giant. They're like half-gallon jugs from different breweries that I enjoy.
That's my good collection.
Yeah, you can call it a collection or a cry for help. Either's appropriate.
Way.
Well, Tony, just start drawing eyes and faces on them. Then they're toys,
exactly.
right?
Then they're toys.
Yeah.
Toys I can drink out of.
It's kind of like milk and cheese.
Yeah. But there is going to be a new Professor toy coming out very soon, actually, in a month or two. I've teamed up with a guy called Lunatic, who he does a little chat coming out of a cup of tea. It's a sort of designer toys, and we've done a special, like, limited edition Professor version. So that's me. I can die hand. That's going to be lovely. Once I've done that, then that's pretty much everything I intended to do. I can die.
Yeah, I was going to say, Tony and I talked about this before. Like, you've got, like, everything on your site or whatever, music, comics,
books,
T-shirts, a toy coming out. Jeez.
Well, it's a weird thing because it sort of makes you more creative when you've got some kind of limits on it, and everything's happening being focused through a certain lens. I don't know. It's sort of, I found it enables me to get on with more stuff and get further with things and get people involved more because there's a very obvious, look, I did this thing. Do you want to do something a bit like that, but with the kind of stuff that you do? So yeah, it's strange. If I was just doing hip hop and I was doing all kind of broader variety of stuff, I don't think I'd get as far. But there's something quite nice about just riding it till the wheels fall off.
Right.
Basically, just keep churning it all out till the very last bit of merchandise has come.
That's what.
No more.
That's what I always figured I would do if I had this kind of a thing. Is I would just be like, okay, I love toys, so I need to get a toy of me made. I need,
Yes, once I end up successfully marketing my Professor Elemental depilatory cream, I'll be able to afford that extra wing of toys to the office.
Exactly.
Oh, I've got terrible piles, Jeffrey. Bring me over the cream, would you? Try and do Professor Cream. No, nobody wants that. As my other half sort of looks at me, she's quite deadpan, and she's very supportive, but thankfully not massively into the Professor stuff, which is kind of good. It stops me from kind of getting too lost in it. And she looked at me the other day and looked over at my shelf of some merchandise, and she said, "So really, your job is just travelling around the country with loads of things with a picture of your face on, trying to get people to buy pictures of your face on different things." I was like, yes, I suppose that is all it is. When you break it down, that's all I'm doing these days.
That's all I've ever wanted in life.
I've got to tell you, my wife was exactly the same with my flirtation with Nazi ideology. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, they're funny, aren't they? They're so judgmental.
Yeah. All right. So, in terms of the toy thing, like I end up by getting a whole bunch of sort of action figures very early on and that sort of thing. Definitely the superpowers figures. Like my first one was Superman. I started getting a whole bunch, but I've sold a little bit because I'm sort of this year I actually started my own children's charity. I dress up as Batman with a bunch of other superheroes, and we go and we make donations of comics and toys to kids in hospitals and that sort of thing. We do fundraisers for neuroblastoma and children's palliative care and children's intensive care. So if anyone wants to check out the site on Facebook, Just Us League. Anyway.
That's good. That's really good. That's
heroics.
I gotta say though,
there is that being said, like I don't have the same level of funding that sort of a lot of the larger charities do because like I'm not rich, and I think
eccentric.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm definitely not eccentric. I'm broke ass, poor, and weird. But
mental.
Would you shut up? This is my moment to shine. Talking about polishing a turd. Anyway, but the Funko Pops has been like a really great thing, and I managed to end up by meeting Stan Lee, and I've got one of the autographed Stan Lee Funko Pops that I'm going to hold on to unless, sort of like there's going to be like a big charity shindig that I can auction that off and maybe that'll sort of, I don't know, help out a kid's Christmas or something. Because at the end of the day, it's just stuff. Like I love all my stuff, don't get me wrong, but if it's not calling me daddy or sort of doing something else remarkable, then yeah, maybe it can go out the door and do something better. But
I agree with you to an extent. You're completely right, and there are things which override all of that. And particularly if you can help help an underprivileged, like, or help a child kind of getting on in the world. Having said that, if it's like an actual figure autographed by Stan Lee, keep that shit. Don't be selling that. You've got a point, but there's got to be you've got to draw a line in this.
Right? Yeah, you can't help everybody.
Don't let the kids take it all.
True.
That being said, like, I do have an autographed cover of the Army of Darkness script with Bruce Campbell and the Raimi brothers autographs on it, and I've got John Pertwee's autograph on a photo as well from way back that I paid a little bit. So I've got quite a few little bits and pieces and that sort of thing. So if I do have to sell some stuff, then
there comes a time and place, doesn't it? There's a time where it's all right it's all right for the greater good to do the odd bit of grown-up stuff. It doesn't affect your interest or fascination or passion for any of this stuff just because you haven't got it in your hands. You still like the things you like. So, that's cool. Keep me posted with the charity, and feel free if you need to nudge a campaign or anything like that. Then do give me a shout, and I'll do my best to get the word out.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, that sounds ace. Super. Anyway, where were we? What's going on?
Wow.
Where am I? Where are you people? Where's my medication?
I do have a question. The future of steampunk. Now, given that it's in the past, well, sort of.
Whoa, mind-blowing.
It's just like...
I feel like I'm reading something by Jonathan Hickman right now. I don't...
I think right now we're in the future of steampunk.
Yes. Well, technically I am in the... Well, actually, am I in the future? Actually, I am. Yes, I am currently in the future. So there you go.
So how's steampunk in the future, Oz?
Pretty much the same as it was yesterday. But
that's good
it's
news
a lot
for
less
Professor.
Jules Vernian than I thought. So
a bit more mundane. Well, the nice thing about steampunk is I think it feels like to me, and I could be wrong here, but it feels like maybe a year or two ago, like the mainstream had a brief flirt with steampunk in terms of like fashion exhibitions and films and music videos for Justin Bieber and stuff, and realised there really wasn't very much in it that they could do to monetize it and steal it away and make it into a big monetary thing.
Right.
And so they've just sort of left it on the side again, which is great news for anybody who likes steampunk, because as we know, money ruins everything, whether it's hip hop or comics or anything else. Sooner or later, money gets into it and ruins it all.
Wow.
So I think steampunk's going to be vibrant and will kind of continue exactly as it has. It will have new little acts and offshoots and arty things that will occur, and some things will fall by the wayside and some new things will go on. But I think because it's nerdy and it's beloved, nerds, as we've just been talking about, when you like something, you like it and you keep liking it forever. Yeah. So I think it will kind of just maintain in its own little weird corner of the world. Hopefully.
And I think that's the great thing about that aspect of sort of nerd culture and geek culture, that's the one wild pony that, mainstream has never been able to entirely tame, whereas so much of what our interests and passions are becoming mainstream and monetized and sort of, now basically becoming cliche and commercial. The steampunk thing isn't.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's not quite popular enough there's not a demand enough in the mainstream for it to ever get like that as well. So I think it will always be something that's slightly sneered at by sort of mainstream people, or, they'll never even know what it is. Most people wouldn't know what steampunk is in the first place. Right. But that's okay. We'll just kind of keep it over here in our little corner. Like compared to something...
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was just about to say, unless they decide to end up by taking it sort of the same way that horror and vampire fiction, and all of a sudden you find out you've got
that's true.
You find out you've got a steampunk version of like Twilight. They'd probably call it Clockwork or something.
The Gears of Love.
Well, now I have something to do after we're done here. I'm launching this movement.
Oh, please, God, no. I struggle. Like me and my friends, we get together. I just going off the subject a bit, but we get together every Wednesday that we can do. And the tradition is that I find a terrible horror film for us to watch.
Nice.
They watch it, and then they all throw things at me and go, "Oh, Paul, that was terrible." And I go, "Oh, sorry," and then I do it again the next week. But horror is so like thin on the ground that we're really struggling to find. I'm struggling to find things that will offend my friends in the proper manner.
Yeah.
Ever since there was a couple of really horrible horror films, and then a glut of Twilighty stuff, and then ever since there's not a lot out there. There's not a lot out there that is genuinely quite good and scary.
Just
I've
more
started-
bodies. That'll offend everybody.
I've started to return to the 1970s sort of things like, The Haunting of Julia with Mia Farrow and, The Beast Must Die, the blaxploitation werewolf film from like 1976, I think it is, and like the old Hammer horror films as well, like, Christopher Lee as Dracula. I mean, that was a dude that was legitimately scary, and I mean, even sort of...
He still is.
He's Christopher Lee is anything.
Yeah. I mean,
I never really...
No, sorry, go on.
I know, I was going to say that I'm a bit more, I think because of my era, I always found the Hammer horror was a sort of, I think I watched Carry On Screaming about the same time I was watching the Hammer horror site. I tend to more leap to the really horrible ones from the 80s when they were trying to get them banned all the time. They've got no artistic merit at all, and there's nothing good about them. They're still my favourite.
So,
sorry, I'm going wildly off the subject now. You carry on. I don't know what I'm talking about.
You're staying just this side of snuff films, right?
God, I don't know if I want this interview going out, This is not the persona I normally try and show the world.
I'm just trying to figure out how they're going to actually make a Twilight snuff film, so I think they've pretty much done that already. So
the secret is you watch Twilight and then you snuff yourself.
That's the Shyamalan twist.
Yeah.
Some kind of combination of Twilight and the Human Centipede. That's what I was waiting for.
Okay, I'd watch that.
I would watch that too, yeah.
Cast of Twilight, Human Centipede concept. It'll be brilliant.
And it makes $100 million.
Yeah, exactly.
I guarantee you that Kristen Stewart's facial expressions would change at least once during the making of that film. So.
That's very true. So I feel like you sort of accidentally got to the sort of dark heart behind the Professor. Normally, these interviews, I tend to just strictly talk about, isn't it lovely doing shows and have a cup of tea and look at my trousers. But then, you've taken me down some slightly weird avenues, gentlemen. I don't know.
You know
if I want the world to see the real me behind the job.
Well, like some photographers are known for, they take portraits of people and then they're known for capturing their true essence. That's kind of what we feel we've done here.
Are you talking about upskirt photos or just sort of mainstream?
You are the equivalent of an upskirt photographer.
I have to say, that is the best compliment we've ever received.
Yeah.
Don't put that on the website. That won't get you any good. Won't get you the kind of hits you want.
Yeah, that's probably true.
I don't know. We have a special audience.
Yeah, they're mental. I was going to say eccentric, but most of them aren't rich, so mental.
Yeah, absolutely. They're the best kind of people. I definitely find that it shows them. Whenever I do a show, the weirder the audience look in terms of not looking mainstream, when I see people like, wow, you guys look a bit frightening, or those costumes are a bit much, or I didn't know you could wear that much PVC, or that little PVC and get away with it. Right. Those people are always the nicest. The weirder the person, the nicer they are. That's the general rule in life.
Well, I think that holds with like sociopaths and stuff, doesn't it? I mean, like, the ones that's always like, they're the quiet, they were so nice. They're the ones that have like, responsible for all these grisly murders and stuff,
Brian, stop it scaring our guest.
It's too late for that. I'm just glad I'm safely tucked away on another continent from you.
Don't leap to any conclusions, Paul. We can find you.
I have agents in the Eccentric Society,
Well, it's been lovely talking to you, and I really must go and hide.
Well, my job here is done.
Excellent. Another successful interview.
There we go. Another hit in the basket, as it were.
Hey, Oz, you're no longer the ghostwriter. You're in charge now.
God, don't put him in charge. God knows why.
Yeah, you're right. Jeffrey would be a better choice. Yeah.
There you go.
All right. Well, you guys have anything else here, or because I think we're winding down time-wise here, so.
Yeah, I'm pretty much. Yeah, I've got to head off to do the next thingy.
Yeah. So, Oz, you have anything else, or Tony? Anything?
I I'm good. I'm just going to promote the charity out there, Just Us League. We are on Facebook. There's a link to our website. Specific focus for children's charities. Sort of, it's important. Like any time that a kid's in hospital, they have a little bit of magic taken away from them. So anything you can do to sort of help is great, even if it's in your own community. It's just being there for the kids, because we actually believe that anyone can be a hero, and they should. And so, and that's it. So check out what we're doing. We also promote sort of other charities around the world doing a similar thing with us, because, essentially this has been a charity that's been started by 3 geeks who have made the clear delineation that there's a difference between cosplay and a difference between causeplay. It's one of these things, like, if you are going to dress up as a hero and you're going to be impressed about every quality of that hero, if you're going to see a little kid that's in hospital and they've had their childhood taken away from them for their illness, you are Batman, or you are Wonder Woman, or you are Spider-Man to them, and for that moment they see you and the smile goes on their face, you've succeeded in winning that part of their childhood back for them. So, like I said, you have to be absolutely committed to making a difference. So earn the right to wear the uniform of a hero, and remember what's the most important thing. So that's what cosplay is all about. But if anyone's curious, check out the Just Us League charity, wix.com, which is our website, or just look for us on the Facebook page anyway.
We'll have links up on the website and in the show notes for that as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Or
that's lovely. That's lovely.
You can go on to Facebook and hashtag anyone can be a hero and should, and you'll find us on Twitter. You'll find us on on Facebook. You'll find us on I don't know. At the end of this interview, probably you'll find us on a special police watch list. But
you're already there.
Yeah.
Your name comes up on one Interpol report, and all of a sudden you're a terrorist.
Right.
But so that's all I'm going to sort of promote, just sort of the charity side of things, and check out my friend Jay's podcast, 7 Days a Geek, which I will be doing an appearance back upon real soon.
All right. And Professor Elemental, I know you have ProfessorElemental.com. Is there anything else, any other places you prefer people reach out to you or check out your stuff?
I'm in a difficult position now, because normally I would have spent a few minutes talking about different products with my face on.
Oh, no, please,
to buy. But I can't follow, an appeal for being a hero for sick children.
People could buy stuff with your face on it and give it to the kids.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's my new angle.
There you go.
That's a lovely thing to do.
I'm going to announce it. Sort of Professor Elemental's album. All the funds are going towards our charity. You heard it here first.
After a small administration fee that I have to incur.
Well, of course. I mean, you do have costs, fees.
Yeah, a lot of
overhead.
costs.
Right.
A lot of costs.
Monkey butlers aren't cheap.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sawdust.
Exactly.
Clean up from.
So basically, in terms of me, the best place is just to go to ProfessorElemental.com, and all the things I do are there, and I try my best to put up lots of things that aren't just me selling myself as well, lots of like weird stories and mixtapes I make for people and all kinds of weird and wonderful things. And I'm on Twitter a lot, all endlessly rambling away on Twitter at Prof_Elemental. So hopefully I'll be around and about. People ask me when I'm on tour, and I'm on tour forever until I'm not allowed to go out anymore. So I'll probably be coming to your house or your town soon. I'll see you around.
Not mine, but
but you never know.
Well, after this interview, I figured you might steer clear of it. No.
Well, actually, there's a few spots on the map I won't be traveling.
Yeah.
It's funny. Mr. B said exactly the same thing.
We have that effect on people, it seems.
Yeah. Well done to you all. That's great. Alienating fellow nerds.
All right. Well, it was a blast to have you on. I appreciate it so much. So thanks for coming on.
Oh, thanks ever so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's made my day. So, I shall keep listening and see you all soon.
All right.
No worries.
All right. Well, that was a good talk with Professor Elemental and Oz, and
Of course,
us.
our podcast once again spans the globe.
It does. We just had, Michigan, Brighton, and England, and Sydney, Australia. Yeah.
It's pretty impressive.
Yep. That's how we do here. That's why we're the sexiest podcast, not only on the network.
On the planet.
On the planet. So hope you all enjoyed that. And, well, you got something else here?
I was just say, Hail Hydra. Our tentacles go everywhere.
Yeah. Especially if the door's open.
That's right. Then it become very Japanese.
Well, I guess.
Ugh.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, as we said on the show, you can reach Professor Elemental at professorelemental.com.
He's a prof_elemental on the Twitter machine.
Yep. And, Oz, you can find his charity at the Just Us League on Facebook. Again, we'll have all these links in the show notes and or on our Facebook
on
or on
the website.
Yeah, we'll have them in plenty of places. You can stick them in your face hole.
I might. Well, never mind. I don't want to talk shop at the end of our show like we always do. So
fair enough.
I'll wait.
Yeah. And obviously on the Twitter, you can find us at salty_language. You can find me at Stunami.
I'm at Monotony. Our pal Oz is Angry Oz Geek.
Right.
On Twitter.
And, let us know what you think. We're having fun doing these enthusiasts, and, we definitely want to keep doing them, but, we want to hear what you think. If you have anybody you'd like to hear us try to get, or if you have, a hookup for us.
Ooh, even better.
Right?
Let's work for us.
Yeah, exactly. Send it to saltylanguage@gmail.com or on the Twitter or whatever, You know
how to get a hold of us.
Yeah, you do.
Hail
We're
Hydra.
everywhere. Hail Hydra. So, until next time, have a beer, you'll be fine.
Stay salty.
And go piss rocks.
Ah, look at that, Jeffrey. Another fine day shining down on God's sweet Britain. Land of crumble and lemon curd and opportunity. God, I love it. I begin every sentence with an apology. Sorry, that's the case. That's just British policy. Probably the case with everything in honesty. I use 10 words when 2 would do honestly. I'm British, and that makes me unique. At least I think so when I hear you speak. See, we used to have an empire, but we got a little cocky. Like, haha, Johnny Foreigner, I'd like to see you stop me. And sure enough, we rhubarb crumbled. Now in every town, all the drunk teens stumble. I'm rather glad, really. It made us more humble. Come and ask me where I'm from, dear boy, I won't mumble. I'm British. I don't want to be fantastic, just adequate. And if I'm nice, it's probably sarcastic. Ridiculously cynical, that's what we're like. If you can't take a joke, get on your bike. I'm British. Like a clotted cream tea, apologetic Morris dancer, then you must mean me. I'm British. Like the wickets in cricket, like crikey, blimey, nice one, wicked. I'm British. As a fat dame in a panto, like Woodhouse, Orwell, Wells and Poe. So if you're down with the Brits, then make some noise. But if you'd rather not, that's fine. We're ever so nice to our pets, and we know not to work too hard. We're inventive, accepting, eccentric, and yes, I suppose we're a bit bizarre. But if you delight in celebrities taken down just because of the way they live, or you can feel bleak joy in a seaside town as the rain pours down on your chips, or you can drink 10 pints of Adnams without ever breaking your stride, or repress your emotions and passions and bury them deep inside, then I've kept a room in a cramped B&B with a TV that only shows BBC Two, and I have the keys right here. I've been keeping them just for you. I'm British. As Williams, James, Hattie Jakes, school dinners, roast dinners, massive cakes. I'm British. As a chimney sweep, chim chim chiree, or a professor in a pith accompanied by chimpanzees. So if you're down with the Brits, then put your hands in the air. But if you'd rather not, that's fine, actually. I mean, I don't want to cause too much of a fuss. But at this point, I'd just like to take a moment to apologise on behalf of Britain for all the things that we've brought to the world. Simon Cowell, for example, and Jim Davidson, fox hunting, black pudding, racism. But most of all, we're so terribly, terribly sorry about Piers Morgan.